Okay, so this one is all about triangles being congruent. So in the previous class, we had to list every single part that was congruent. For example, we had three angles that were congruent to three corresponding angles of a different triangle, and three sides that were congruent to three corresponding sides of another triangle. So what this does gives you like shortcuts to prove that two triangles are congruent. So the first one is side, side, side. Okay, also known as SSS. Okay, please do not say the triangles are congruent by SSS. Please just say side, side, side. Okay, so the side, side, side postulate says that if three sides of one triangle are congruent to three sides of another triangle, then triangles are congruent. Okay, so a quick little example is this. So let's go ahead and let's say we have A, B, C, and then we have D, E, and F. And then we say that AB is congruent to DE. Now, CB is congruent to EF. Okay, and then AC is congruent to DF. So notice that they're only giving us three sides, right? So we say that AB, segment AB, is congruent to DE. Okay. Now segment BC is congruent to EF. Okay. And then AC is congruent to DF. Okay. So this one is a side, that one is a side, that one is a side. Therefore, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Okay? So that's the first one. There's five of them. Next one. Next one is side, angle, side. Okay? So this one says, if two sides and the included angle, included means the angle between the sides, included angle of one triangle are congruent to two sides, and the included angle of another side, of another triangle, then triangles are congruent. Okay, so in other words, this is what this is saying. So let's go ahead and draw again two triangles. Let's call that one A, B, and C, and then again D, E, and F. So I'm going to say that AC is congruent to DF. Now BC is congruent to EF. So, I forgot to mention that the reason we put two tick marks instead of just one for this one is because we know that this one is congruent to that one, but this one might not be congruent to that one unless we give it a value, right? And then, so it says the included angle, so the angle between those two sides, or the angle made by these two sides. So it's that one and that one. So if we look at it, okay, we know that AC is congruent to DF. Okay, now we know that angle C is congruent to angle F. And then finally, we know that BC is congruent to EF. So if we label this, we have a side, an angle, and a side. Okay? So therefore, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF by side, angle, side. Okay? Alright, so that's that one. If you need to pause, make sure you pause and watch the video carefully. So the next one, okay? So the next two, actually, kind of similar. They're just the other way around. So let's say, so this one is angle, side, angle. That one, I think you know what it says. So if you have two angles and the side and the included side is congruent to two angles and the included side of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So I'm just going to draw the example and then you can translate that into writing. So this one is A, B, and C. This one is D, E, and F. So I'm going to say that AB is congruent to that. Now that's the included angle, so that means this angle is congruent to that one, and angle A is congruent to angle D, right? So that means we have an angle, a side, and an angle. So pair of angles, pair of sides, pair of angles, and these sides are between the two congruent angles. So we say that angle A is congruent to angle D. Now AB is congruent to DE. Again, remember if you switch these two around, you are telling me that E is congruent to A, which is not true. So be careful on how you write segments. Okay, and then finally, angle B is congruent to angle E. So again, if we label this, that's an angle, that's a side, that's an angle. So therefore, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF by angle, side, angle. Okay? The next one, angle, angle, side. So very self-explanatory. Two corresponding angles are congruent to two corresponding angles of another triangle, and then the side, there's a side that is corresponding to another side of another triangle. So here we go. So let's draw the two triangles again. So let's label that one B, E, F, and that one A, B, and C. Okay, so then I am going to say that angle D is congruent to angle A, angle F is congruent to angle C, and then this side is congruent to that one. I mean, you can also have that side and this side, but they have to follow this angle, angle, side without skipping anything. Okay, angle, angle, side. You cannot go angle, angle, and well, I guess it were angle, angle, side. So just be careful. So we say angle D is congruent to angle A. Angle F is congruent to angle C. And finally, EF, segment EF, is congruent to segment BC. Now, if you label this, that's an angle, and that's a side. So triangle DEF is congruent to triangle ABC by angle, angle, side. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some examples on this. So let's see. We're going to show or determine if triangles are congruent. Okay, I'm going to say, if we say yes, we're going to say why. If they say no, we're going to explain why. So let's say I have this. Okay, this one's A, B, C, and D. Now, I know that this side, let me use a different color, that side is congruent to that one. This side is congruent to that one. So let's go ahead and write them down. So we know AC is congruent to DC. Okay, now we know that AB is congruent to DB. So we have two sides. We can either go side, 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 angle, side. But, but we're missing either an angle or a side. Now, since none of the angles are labeled, we have to try to find a side that is congruent. And if you look at it closely, this side, this segment CB is part of this triangle on the left, but it's also part of this triangle on the right. Therefore, CB is congruent to itself, and that is called the reflexive property. Okay, so now we have a side, we have another side, and we have another side. So therefore, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DBC by side, side, side. Okay? Again, if you don't see this, you can just break them apart. Okay, that's A, that's B, and that's C. And again, this side, that's B, that's C, and that's D. Label them. Okay, and there you go. Okay, let's look at another example real quick. So here's another example. So let's say I have something that looks like this. It's kind of like one of my favorite shapes. Okay, so this is what's given. So let's label A, P, let's make it A, B, C, D, and E. So we have two triangles, right? So given B is the midpoint of DE and also the midpoint of AC. So as soon as you see midpoint, so midpoint, remember, it divides the segment into two congruent parts. So that means that one is congruent to that one. Okay? And then this one is congruent to that one. Okay? So now we have a side, and a side here, and another side. So we can either go side, side, side. We can find a third side that is congruent, or we can find an angle if we want to do side angle side, right? So in this case, it's easier to find the angle because right here, those two angles are vertical angles, okay? So, and we know that vertical angles are congruent. So let's do this. So we know DB is congruent to EB, okay? Then we know that angle DBA is congruent to angle CBE. And then finally, we know that segment AB is congruent to segment CB. So again, if we look at this, that's a side, that's an angle, and that's a side. Okay? Therefore, triangle DBA is congruent to triangle E, B, and C by side angle side. What we're doing right now is we're doing proofs without making them formal. Okay, so we're just practicing, just identifying triangles that are congruent. Okay, one last example. Okay, and I will make another video on proofs, but that will be later. So let me see what can I do here. So we have side angle side. We also did side side side. So let's go ahead and make a, okay, so make that one like that. And let's see, let's go ahead and make one like this. Okay, so I know this one is congruent to that one. So let's go ahead and label A, B, C, and D. So those two are congruent. And I know those two are congruent. Okay? Now, we have a pair of two angles. So let's go ahead and label them. So angle B is congruent to angle D. And then we know angle A is congruent to angle C. So we have an angle and an angle. So our options are angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. Okay? So if we find a side that is between the angles that are congruent, then we can use angle, side, angle. Or we can find a side that is corresponding to another side of a different triangle, and then they're going to be congruent. Now, in this case, I know what you're thinking, and you're thinking, right, this one is congruent to itself. So that is your reflexive property. So AC must be congruent to AC, and that's a side. So therefore, triangle ABC, okay, is congruent to triangle CDA by angle, angle, side. Okay, so I will put a worksheet along with this. So make sure you, if you're absent, make sure you look at it. And if you're at home and you want to do extra practice, it's going to be there. Okay, and also if you need help, come see me at lunch.